I fell in love with gaming after I was first introduced to Risk. Probably was my parents who gave that to me. They knew I wanted more out of games because I wasn't really interested in the typical family game. But I saw a whole new world with Risk, something that demanded more of the player. It was strategic. It was a lot more fun than I expected a game to be. So I cut my teeth on that and I drove my family crazy, constantly asking to play this game. So that made me pay attention to the gaming biz. I realized you could actually make a living doing this, designing games. I wanted to try my hand at that, and I would make my own games with my own space theme just to see how stuff worked and why it worked that way. So each game I ever tried is just an experiment. Does this approach work? Does this type of mechanism work? Dogfight is a fast-paced spaceship combat game. It's meant to be easy to learn. Getting to that point took a lot of effort. It's been 10 years now. The story, the game world, started to emerge shortly after we started developing the gameplay itself. Earlier on, we realized we needed some boundaries. It being a space-based game, we decided we could either borrow from other sci-fi franchises, which we're all familiar with, but I decided to go the opposite route. I went with primitive space tech. That made a really solid setting. So we decided it was going to be late 21st century, before human civilization ventures beyond its own solar system. That gave us a really good base to work from. The gameplay has been feeding the story, and the story has been feeding the game ever since. Dogfight originally was a split-off of another game I had worked on. It was a really slow-paced, intense game. It was just not fun, but it had potential. So I split that game into two pieces. One would be the fleet idea, which had some promise. The tactical element would remain in the other game, and that couldn't handle fleets, so I decided that would be a one-ship only approach. So I had to rebuild those cards with that single ship approach in mind. And I like to do a lot of experiments with my games. For example, in strategy games that use cards, the typical way to play a card is to play it face up on the table and something happens. So I did the exact opposite of that. What if the normal way to play a card was to put it face down and it happens later? And that lent itself naturally to a sequence of actions. I also wanted the game to have as much freedom as possible for the player. So when I looked at these other games that were on the market, games which I like, they had some encumbrances which were necessary. Once I started designing games for myself, I had a whole new respect for game designers. When I looked at these other games, I saw limitations that were definitely required just to keep those games from falling apart. But I wondered, was it possible to design a game that didn't need those limitations from the beginning? And that really has guided the development of Dogfight. I wanted a game that was easy, complex enough to be interesting, and highly customizable. And my loyal playtesters, two guys in particular who've been with me for all 10 years, they kept coming back week after week, and they obviously enjoyed the game. And a new idea here or there would be for a new card, and that new card would turn out to be a lot more than just a card. And multiple ideas turn out the same way, adding a new dynamic, a new avenue to explore. And the game just continued to grow beyond there. At this point, we are still at a stage where players would say, hey, can I do this? Well, it would be great if we could do that. And we'll continue to create new cards that never even occurred to me. But players, since it's a customizable game, players have freedom, and they're getting involved, offering ideas, and the game keeps growing.